All right, everyone, we are back for our next session. We have a marketing roundtable discussion with three fantastic marketing owners here in Omaha. First, I wanted to share some of the trivia results just for those folks that were participating. So question one, what is the only mammal born with horns? We had everyone answered giraffes correctly, so everyone's still on the hunt for a Brickway gift card. The second one is, where was Pizza Hut's first restaurant built? And that is Wichita, Kansas. What was the name of the first capital of the United States? And that is New York City. Congrats to the two people that got that right. Which U.S. state is the only state to grow coffee? And that is Hawaii. Thank you, Wendy, for making sure that that was right. And what is traditionally eaten the day before Ash Wednesday in the UK? And that is pancakes. All righty. Perfect. We've got James on. So let's go over here.
Good afternoon.
Hello, James. How are you today?
Oh, I wish I was there in person, but you all would probably not.
Yes, we wish you were here as well. So as mentioned, we have three wonderful folks that are going to be partaking in our roundtable discussion on marketing your business. I am going to let each of them introduce themselves and share their personal background stories. So Wendy, would you like to get us started?
Sure thing, probably because we're the oldest agency represented here today. Not the oldest person, but that might be true too. I represent Zaiss and Company. I am the president and chief creative officer. We're almost 33 years old, pretty good for a female-owned small business. I'll take that as a plus. What else can I tell you about me?
Yeah, I think just maybe tell us a little bit about how Zaiss started. Okay. and what you're doing.
Yeah, so founder Tracy Zaiss started the company, and she started it with a concept called account planning. It was kind of coming into America from London. And that just really meant where you step way back and you do a lot of good research that will inform, the strategies will inform creative and media. It was a new concept, and I was learning it at the same time at J. Walter Thompson in San Francisco, and we joined forces. I joined her about 21 years ago. So we're thriving all the way and made it through COVID and all that good stuff. So thankful for our clients.
Awesome. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. What about yourself, Matt?
So I started in radio broadcasting in about almost 18 years ago. In fact, yeah, almost 18 years ago this month that I started as an intern for iHeartMedia and worked my way up there. And I spent the last 17 and a half years doing various local and syndicated, nationally syndicated radio programs. And all along the way, my brother and I started doing various video freelance projects, audio commercials, and things like that for clients locally. And eventually that kind of formed into what is now Two Brothers Creative, which is our company that we started officially back in 2013. And we produced a TV show here locally called Omaha Live that aired for 7 seasons, and we did over 200 episodes. It was a half-hour sketch comedy show that aired every week after Saturday Night Live. And then, kept doing the freelance stuff. And then I decided, and it happened to be in January of 2020 was when I decided I wanted to kind of pursue a lot of the ideas and things that I thought we were kind of missing out on in radio with podcasting and different, incorporating video and more interactive mediums. And so that was the year I decided to just kind of take the leap and just go 100% in with doing Two Brothers Creative full time. And COVID was like a weird year because I don't know, my wife says it was a horrible year for everybody except for you, because I lost like 45 pounds and the business, everybody all of a sudden needed to do live streaming. They needed to do, podcasts just blew up as far as not just for entertainment, but for a marketing tool. And everybody needed video because we're all doing things remotely. And so content creation kind of just exploded as far as the need for people who have the means and capabilities to do that. So that's kind of where we're at today. And we do a variety of projects. Audio, video, podcast is kind of a niche area we specialize in. but everything from TV commercials to music videos and kind of everything in between.
Sweet. So when the Alliance Group does their first music video,
Yes.
you can put that together for us? Is that
As
all right?
long as there's like long, curly hair.
Okay,
ladies
yeah,
and
and you got some
lots of makeup.
drummer in the background.
Taylor has to get the Twisted Sister wig out and wear that.
There we go, James.
I've done a bunch of
Yeah.
those 80s sounds
Yeah.
bands,
Okay.
cheesy 80s music.
I'll
so
keep
I've got,
thinking
yeah.
about it. Yeah,
I'll send you some clips. For
Okay,
ideas.
all right, for some
Yeah.
inspiration. Awesome. James, what about yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and your business and Kreativelement.
Yeah, so previous life, grew up in Oklahoma, moved up here in 2007. I was a junior executive for Fortune 500 and kind of saw the writing on the wall where that company was headed. And I had 27 locations here in Nebraska, 18 down in Oklahoma, and marketing and all that was always something that I was responsible for, but I was responsible for the whole shebang, if you will. And I moved up here and got into small business for the first time, and started a consulting company in 2010 and realized quickly that I would not be able to sell it or clone myself. I needed to build something that could live beyond me. And so Kreativelement was actually born out of a dying video company. Back in 2012, we acquired the company and rebranded pretty much overnight and launched at the Big O show in 2012. If anybody remembers the Big O show, but it was a long time ago. So next year we'll enter 10 years. So not near as many as Wendy.
Thank you, James.
But for a digital focused, digital first company, starting in 2012, we now have, we're hiring, I guess, our 16th employee. So we'll be at 16 in 4 states now. And it's kind of odd. We went fully remote in March of 2020 and started hiring even those maybe not even all in Omaha. So we've got 11 here in Omaha area and everybody others in other states, but been a client of the Alliance Group since day one. And so kind of neat to see these summits happening and going on. But our bread and butter is social media, SEO, SEM, and video photo. And those are our main areas that we concentrate on. We just finished our 500,000th social campaign, social post this last week. So
That's awesome. And for some of those folks who are marketing challenged, what does SEO and SEM mean?
yeah, sorry, I throw in industry lingo, right? So search engine optimization and search engine marketing. So the organic aspect of being found online versus the paid way through, say, Google or other types of non-social ads.
Perfect. Well, I was just asking for a friend, so it's, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Awesome. So we'll start kind of broad and we'll dive a little bit deeper, but at the Alliance Group, our expertise is human resources, right? And we talk about it as this nebulous term that can mean so many different things. So starting with a broad topic in marketing, when I say that word, what does it mean to each one of you? And feel free to, like I said, whoever's inspired, jump in and just have a discussion.
I think for me, if to boil it down to like a simple term, marketing is relationships. And I think we get and I've had this perception too in the past about sales and advertising, that it's this kind of this phony fake thing, like cold calls and, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. But in reality, what I've kind of realized is that we all market ourselves. Each one of us has a brand, whether we're profiting off that or not. I mean, every relationship and interaction we have with anybody is marketing who you are, what's your reputation, how you treat people, and how you operate. That's what that referral marketing, word of mouth is where I think I could probably trace every piece of success I've had in my career from. So I would say, for me, marketing is relationships. The trick is, how do you build an authentic relationship? So one that doesn't come across as you're just trying to sell me something. And so that's where the strategies and the creative process comes in, where, a lot of commercials make you laugh or cry, because you're feeling an emotional reaction or response to something, and that's a way you can connect with somebody. I think that's why podcasts have grown so quickly as a marketing tool for businesses, because that's a very authentic way. Hey, here's something free for you that's helpful for you. I'm not asking for anything in return. And then adjacent to that is how you make money with your business, behind it.
I love that idea. And, marketing is just making sure that what you uniquely stand for, your brand gets out there in the market, so it's marketing that thing. I mean, I think it was ancient Rome with the obelisk with the first advertising, they say the first outdoor boards, because they were still telling people what's happening and how to think about that. So you can't just, hide your brand under a rock and hope for the best, and you can't talk deeply and passionately to yourselves, your company about how great you are. You have to go out there strategically. It's the art and science of telling the world what you stand for and relating to people from outside a relationship, but it's tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll just say that.
Yeah. James, what about yourself?
Yeah, to play off of the aspect of relationship is I was thinking through this, that, marketing is really the long play. It's creating authority, it's creating a brand, creating a culture, a voice, a feeling, right? Like, you'd mentioned relationship, and whenever you see something, you recognize that brand, you recognize how it makes you feel, how you respond to it, and all of that, I think, is marketing. It's not, like was said, it's not asking for something. It's providing value and providing something for you to respond to authentically, though.
So how does that differ from advertising or promoting? Is that part of the overall marketing umbrella, or are they seen as different aspects?
Advertising is a component of marketing. It may or may not be necessary to market a brand. It is, but yeah, it's just a component, wouldn't you say?
They kind of, the lines blur a lot anymore, because you have, like with the search engine optimization with Google as an example, that's, Google is not just a search engine, it's kind of a knowledge machine where it's looking for the most resourceful content for its users for what they're asking it. So, if you have disingenuous stuff that's just ads flashed in front of people, well, is that really what they're looking for? So I think that the lines kind of blur as far as, like, we have this traditional sense of advertising, like a billboard or a commercial, but we're all watching our second screens now. That's where through phones and tablets and online. So what's the difference between marketing, advertising, and promotion? I guess, from my perspective, I don't think there really is a difference. I think it all kind of fits, like I said, under that. I think marketing is a better way to describe it, because you're promoting, you're advertising, you're marketing. I just consider it all kind of marketing to be, just kind of from my perspective.
Yeah, the big differentiator, I think, in advertising is having a very direct call to action that you're expecting somebody to respond to, right? And marketing is, we're passively doing that all the time. We're educating people and helping people understand who we are. And but when we break down and we actually are trying to get them to do something or take action on something, either that's buy a product or whatever else, to me, that's the differentiator between that and advertising. But I do agree with Wendy that advertising is a piece that fits into marketing.
Yeah, marketing is a grand umbrella that includes everything. I mean, how your employees think about your brand, recruitment, retention, public relations. I mean, it's the grand plan and device that helps you reach business goals. So business plan, marketing plan, and the components under that is how I put it traditionally. But I do agree with you; those words get interchanged. So we're very clear about saying we're a marketing firm, not an ad agency, because we want distinction in that manner.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of where I feel comfortable too, because I agree with what James said. There is a difference in that direct call to action versus just like brand awareness, but anymore it can, what's an advertisement, paid growth versus organic growth, and word of mouth and your employees. And I mean, I think even one-to-one relationships with people, that falls under the same umbrella where it's like that. I don't think I've done any advertising or marketing for trying to attract new customers, it's all been referral marketing. And I feel like referral marketing has kind of exploded thanks to social media and the internet, where it's like one person isn't just referring this company to one person, it's referring it to a whole bunch of people. So both a big scale and a very small, intimate one-on-one scale, you have to put kind of the same priority in how you're marketing your company.
Yeah. Now, how much of that is done proactively versus reacting to something that has changed or has happened within the business, right? So you obviously go out, you set your calendar of what that marketing schedule is going to look like for the year, and that's your proactive approach. But then what about the day-to-day, like hand-to-hand kind of combat that you have to do when stuff happens?
Well, it all has to be purposeful.
Yeah.
If you don't market your own brand and position yourself, you will be by your competition or your audience. I mean, they'll decide. A lot of wars are fought on social by the consumer, and you kind of watch them sometimes. So I think we try to always be purposeful in a plan, to your point, and have it scheduled, but then in the day-to-day watching, because this world is crazy and things can go topsy pretty fast.
Yeah.
I think like asking a lot of, like, if I had to simplify, is like one thing I think is missed a lot of just asking why. Like, why are we really doing this? Are we doing this just because, well, I've heard that, lots of people are on Facebook, so I should buy Facebook ads. Well, is that where your customer base really is? Like, there is this, a profile you can build as far as the average age and the interests, et cetera, for most Facebook users in your area, region, or, nationally. But is that where you're going to find your new business revenue, new clients, new customers? So I think there's a lot of like shiny, flashy objects right now, and there's a new one every 10 minutes, where it's like, no, you need to use this new app, and now there's TikTok, and now there's this, and all these different platforms, and we got YouTube Shorts now, we got to do that, Instagram Reels, got to do that, and you start doing all these things. And a lot of the times we don't even ask ourselves, okay, why are we really doing this? Like, what is our end goal here that we want to accomplish? And what are we actually delivering as a solution to the, the pain points of the consumer? Like, what do they really need? And what's the solution we're providing for that need? And is this really the medium to do that? I think so. That's kind of a basic thing. I've been guilty of that too, where it's like, you want to do something because it's cool. Maybe not necessarily thinking through, like, should I really be doing this stuff?
Yeah, having a plan, setting strategy, executing the plan, but having flexibility, whatever opportunities, trends, things like that pop up that you can capitalize on. But it has to start with having an actual plan that you're going to execute, and not trying to sway too far from it.
Yeah. So when you bring on a new client, what is the approach to that? I mean, how are you discovering the problem areas, what gaps they have? Kind of walk us through what that like scope of services is, if you will, to then dive into what maybe the deeper problem is, or how you're going to set forth a strategy to market their business.
James, do you want to take that first time? So we got to bring it up to you.
So, being a strategic person, my other company is called Strategic Omaha, and I go in and help companies set strategy for the whole company level. But so I'm a very strategic based person. So we have an individual onboarding meeting for every single client to go through and help understand what their mission, vision, values are, how we can start to speak as them, to adapt their voice, to adapt their way, and then just start down that road. You over years and years, you start to understand different clients, and but every single client has a unique perspective. Every single one says, I'm different, and they are, but you have to, we came up with our tagline of "you do your thing, we'll do the marketing," as a kind of a passive way of saying, stay in your lane, bro, we got this. But it's really the perspective of, we want them to concentrate on the stuff that they are doing really well. They're building their business, and we will learn and adapt to their voice and to create content based on who they are. And so many of our clients, their customers don't know that they're not the ones creating it. And that's the best, I think the best outcome that we can have. We had a client a couple of years ago that brought us a piece of writing that says, can you write like this? And we had to tell them, well, we actually wrote that. And we do a lot in healthcare world. And so it was a healthcare client that came, and that's kind of like the thing that makes us feel really, really good, is that the client didn't even know that it wasn't us. We'd go straight in this. And it all goes back into planning and onboarding and getting to know that client so well that you can write and adapt to their voice.
Anecdotally, James, I was invited by a client who had written for about 10 years to meet with a group of like 20 people in their company to tell them how to write to their voice.
Yeah.
Because I'd written every catalog and everything. I'm like, okay, I'll try. You could read what I wrote all the years, but okay. But yeah, the voice of the customer, to adopt that, even down to style.
Absolutely.
Commas in a series of 3 or not. I had one client that said no negative words ever.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'll second that. I think that when we have a new client, sometimes if someone calls and says, we need outdoor boards, and not in this flip manner, but we'll go, well, we'll be the judge of that. I mean, we're like, oh, okay, really? Let's talk about why you think you need outdoor boards and what are you trying to accomplish? Let's go. And who are your customers now? And do you want more like them? And we love to talk to our clients' customers, their best customers. And we just recently rebranded a 135-year-old company in Omaha. And we said, we want to talk to your best customers and see what they appreciate about you, why they do business with you. And my client said, well, wouldn't you talk to the ones who didn't go with us to see why not? And we said, no, we want to talk to who works with you and what they really appreciate with you, because those little gems of gold come from the mouths of customers. You know, I can do my best strategically to research and understand you. I'm sure that companies know their own business like the back of their hand. But sometimes it's what comes out of the mouths of customers that becomes a really great asset to the content. But we would never begin to start a campaign or a strategy without truly digging deep into the business and the customers of the business. And one of the most complimentary things we hear from our clients is, I think you know our business as well as we do. From all our clients in me. And we say, how could we possibly market your brand in another way? It just wouldn't compute. And you're nodding, Matt. I'm sure James is too. Right, guys? So that's our job.
Yeah. And I think my perspective is a little different than both yours, because I don't handle the larger scale marketing campaigns. So I'm more focused on the actual creation of the content used in these marketing strategies.
Cool.
But as an example, with this kind of probably our top specialty niche area with the audio video podcasting, it's a very similar process where when somebody comes in, like, I want to do a podcast, and there are companies and individuals all over Omaha and really in every market across the world, they'll say, yeah, sure, I'll hit record, hit stop, I'll upload it to this platform, and you'll have your podcast, and I'll charge you X dollars. And it kind of becomes a race to the bottom, like how cheap can people do it? And I did that exercise you just mentioned. When I was first started, I was like maybe a year into just doing Two Brothers Creative 100% as my only thing. And I was curious, why are my clients with me? What is it? And every single one said the same thing. It has nothing to do with the equipment, the gear, knowing how to use the cameras. And, you know, yes, we expect a high quality finished product that, you know, competes on every level, but that's a given. You know, anybody can buy the right gear, and anybody can learn how to hit record. It's the experience. It's your everything that you bring to the table, you know, in your career in broadcasting, and, you know, teaching students for years at Iowa Western Community College how to do broadcasting, and working in TV, how to write scripts, how to develop a podcast that's actually going to get people to listen to it, not just to say, here it is. Because you could record on your phone and post a podcast, you know, but is that going to get listens? And not even further from that, not even just downloads, but just, you know, is it going to accomplish what you want to accomplish with your podcast? If it's to promote your business, or it's just to genuinely help people, you know, because only about 3% of podcasts make money off of the downloads in the first place. So, like, what is the real reason you're doing this? And then, you know, I'll use my experience and to help kind of coach and walk you through that process. But just as an example, and kind of from, I think it's a very similar process what you and Jay were talking about with any client. It's like, okay, who are you? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish here? And let's work towards results and not just doing just to do.
Actions, right?
Yeah.
Strategy, right, James? It's starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few small businesses and small business owners that have been on the call today. So what do you typically see as their biggest need? Coming in, they might not necessarily have a marketing budget, but what do you see when you walk into that door as something that a small business, maybe it's the first 2 or 3 things that you notice that need to get done right away?
I'd say like the 2 things I would say, like the biggest fear is if you have a small marketing budget of having that money not be spent, not getting the most out of that money spent. And I've seen that in radio and other older mediums. They've kind of come along with more trackable, like digital tracking for even local television now. So we actually know how many cable boxes are actually watching, not just like a handwritten diary where people are recalling what they listen to or what they watch, which is how we used to do things. So having methods and a lot of the, especially online with streaming and so many different options, you have a lot of those metrics to base it off of. So you know what you're getting out of the money you're putting in. So you're not just there. I feel like that's a bad advertising. If that's an appropriate label, where it's just this kind of spray and pray, where it's like, yeah, give us your money. We'll air what we call $40,000 worth of airtime commercials, and we'll see what happens. And it's like, well, how many people actually heard that, or how many people actually saw that? So I think being smart and being strategic, but the other thing I'll mention is like first impressions and how valuable that is. And we're in an age where we have an unfair grading curve on the Facebook feed, where Joe Rogan has his video podcast and it's got a $2 million budget, and you've got your video podcast that has a $200 budget. It doesn't matter to the person viewing it. They don't know that, and they don't care. They're just going to view yours as less quality, which can translate to your business is less quality, if that's marketing your business. So you want to make sure that you're making good first impressions with whichever direction you go to. And I think really investing and trusting in experts who both do this, this is what you do. That is a crucial way to avoid those initial missteps that can really hurt your business for years.
One, you made me feel old because I remember filling out the Nielsen thing on paper and sending it in to everyone I watched.
Nobody knows what you're talking about, James.
I still do it in Omaha.
I know they just started
for radio, yeah.
I think digital, though, to piggyback that from a need perspective, is one, clients need a partner, right? They don't need a vendor. They need a partner. But to piggyback off of the digital aspect, when you're talking about budgets and stuff, digital really levels the playing field, right, between big and large customers and people. 20 years ago, we couldn't reach. No small business had the reach that a large company did, spending millions on TV and radio, right? And now we have such a level playing field. As long as you've got the right creative and you've got the right strategy, small companies that have a fraction of the budget can still reach their target better than they could 20 years ago. And so to me, that's why we focus on digital, I think, but it's such a thing that you don't need this giant budget to be able to reach the people you need to reach.
I think that small businesses can benefit from trusting a partner that really knows. And I believe a lot of entrepreneurs are probably listening, and there's a lot of control in someone that founded a business, and I get that completely. But I'm going to rip off James' tagline in a second, because that's so right. Stay in your lane, do your thing, and I'll do mine, because trust me as an expert and have your best interest at heart. It is about a strategy that really defines your business uniquely to whom you want to know, what you want someone to know, think, and feel about your brand. And the medium is one place to worry about that, but also the message is critical. So it's got to break through. And I'll share this with you to scare you a little bit. And I'm happy to send this document to anybody watching, but it's from Domo. And it says, here's what happens every minute across all of these channels. And Matt talked about multi-screens. We're 3 screens at any given time, any of us now. It used to be everybody under 29 had 3. Now it's basically grandma on down. You know, we've just got our, the TV screen, our iPad, and our phone, everything. So you got to break through. How do you break through? I think that's the biggest thing. And among whom? It can't be all things to all people. So you really decide. And I think a lot of small businesses want to be all things to all people. You got to really take some courage and decide, I'm going to focus on these people. But this is every minute. 694,000 hours of video are watched on YouTube every minute. 856 minutes of webinars on Zoom, including ours right now, every minute. TikTok, and this is probably old news, 167 million clips are viewed on TikTok every minute. So yeah, we can say we need to be there, to your point, Matt, but with what, and should we, and how, right? How's our podcast going to break through? It can, and we have faith, right? Because you do it well.
That thing you just mentioned is one I preach always at the beginning. It's like, if you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anybody.
Everybody.
I mean, my wife, I don't think I'm not going to credit her with coming up with this. She just only told it to me, but she said, niches get riches. And so the podcast that we focus on, our process is like figuring out a target listener is what we call it. Like it's an intimate one. You're talking to one person. You're not talking to, hey, listeners, hey, audience, you're talking to one person in their car, one person working out. It's a one-on-one experience. And it's not communal, like watching movies or football games and things like that, right? So, you need to think of it as, okay, we create a profile for, her name is, Brenda Swanson. She's 44. She has 2 kids. She almost finished college. She makes $72,000 a year. Here's the vehicles she drives. Here's the types of TV shows she watches. Because you have to visualize that person that you're speaking to, and I've seen that there's a lot of milk toast, unfortunately, from my first love radio industry, where it's like generic evergreen content that's safe. And there's a reason podcasts have exploded. It's because people don't want that. They want, focus on what you're really good at and bringing something unique to the table that's actually engaging and interesting. It's something I actually want to listen to, because really podcasts and radio are the same thing. There's literally no difference to them, other than one has exploded and is one of the highest trending advertising mediums, and one has died.
Yeah. And personal and customized advertising is on the horizon. I get to pick I'll buy something from you. I'll let you advertise to me, but I'm going to pick what I want what I'm going to be fed. So to your point, personal, direct, and relevant, those are the words we use. And we do a ton of email marketing. Yes, email marketing is alive and well, but it has to, dear Matt, you asked about this, here it is.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. And you're kind of going into the world of even remarketing, right? Like, you showed interest in this. Are you still interested in this? And that's big, but one of the things that we learned, like everybody learned, is that we want to be very, very targeted in who we're reaching, and how, you said, how do we break through? And whenever we do strategy, you've got to have, who is your target? Who is that buyer persona that I was talking about? It's like, who is that person? Who's the second person? Who's the third person that we're trying to reach? But also, even though we want to be targeted there, we have to make sure that we are diversified in mediums, right? Facebook and Instagram went down, and everybody was talking, how am I going to reach my people? Well, you've got other mediums. You still have other ways to reach them. And so you just want to make sure that you have that breakdown, so that you're talking to people on email, you're talking to them in social, you're talking to them on the web, you're talking to them through, YouTube video, you talk to them through podcasts, you're talking to them through radio. So you're not isolated to just one medium. You can break through by reaching them, but then reaching them where they are wanting to be reached.
Well, to the average non-marketing person across the table, right, it almost seems counterintuitive, because you're looking smaller, your scope, like your lens has focused in so much, while your client or business owner is thinking, how do I reach thousands and thousands?
It's like wide
Right.
casting versus
Yeah.
narrow casting, I think is kind of the terminology, but that's 100% accurate. I mean, it's like with podcasts, I mean, I know I use this example probably for the third or fourth time now on this Zoom, but just as from, it applies, I think, universally though, where it's like people think, okay, well, I've got to get 5,000 downloads per episode to hit the threshold for third-party monetization for ad placement on my podcast. So, and I got to do that every single week for 52 weeks. And then you start to realize really quickly when you only have 20 or 30 downloads for each episode, you're like,
I'm not gonna make
oh my
it.
God. And then you get imposter syndrome, and the average length of a podcast is 7 episodes before people throw in the towel. And when you focus on, okay, are we doing this for the right reasons? Let's not do it for the downloads. The downloads can come and we can, that can take a year or 2 years to grow a podcast, to build an audience. It takes time. But in the meantime, like, what are you trying to really accomplish? Well, I want to get 2 new customers into my local mechanic garage each month. And so I'm doing a podcast that helps people every week with helpful tips. I'm selling the sizzle, not the steak. So here's how you can do it. And then if you need help, we're here for it.
Yeah.
And you only have 20 downloads, 20 listeners per podcast per week. But if 2 of those people turn into lifelong customers, you just paid for your entire year's worth of your podcast.
Yeah.
And everything else on top of that is just extra. So I think we do get obsessed with, like, I want to reach 1 million people. Like, well, do you really need to reach 1 million, or do you really need to get, 100 people to actually become customers or clients of the business?
Now, what would you say for folks that are trying to figure this out, right, internally? So you've got a company of 15, 20 employees, and they're just trying to understand how they should get a reach, right? Or how they should acquire a new customer. Like, what should they be practicing internally to help themselves grow and market themselves in the right way?
Well, I'd go back to, who are your best customers? What makes them best? Relationship with you, they spend well, they appreciate you, trust you. And then be able to form a persona, to James's point, or a target audience based on people like them, and then determine, how do I reach them? And if they're podcast listeners or have potential, or you have some content that they would really like, go there. And then identify, I think what Matt's talking about is the cost per acquisition. What can I spend to acquire a new customer that's reasonable? And track that. When you do get the 2 downloads and somebody calls 2 and it cost me $2,000, but I got 2 people, well, that's good. 1,000 per acquisition, that's really good, because my average is 3,000. So Matt did a great job. It's you got to use the metrics and the numbers to understand where you're going to develop. Then you can back into a budget. You need 100 customers, and I need to spend 100 each. It defines your budget.
Yeah.
And that gives parameters to professionals that you allow to help you. So I'm just going to put a little plug in here. Just because you have someone young on your staff, and they should be allowed to do social media.
Amen.
And they might not want to do this. Social media all the time,
Very true.
I did that for Shay. I just a little
Yeah,
thank you. Black Mates is listening.
Shay, we got LinkedIn after this.
Yeah.
We've got Facebook. Yeah, no, that's super. Do you have anything on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think knowing, like, she's actually a client of mine. She ended up being a coach, which has been very helpful. She's Gwen Aspen with Ingram, and we've talked a lot about the book Traction by Gina Wickman, which is just a methodology to kind of organize goal setting and things for your company and your growth. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned from that is being in the right seat and knowing what you're good at. And so I know what I'm really good at. I know where I can excel and really deliver. But I also know that, like, just because I am on social media, like you said, doesn't mean I know how to put together the most effective social media strategy. And I'm fine with excelling at this part and then partnering with somebody else for this part. And so I feel like you don't try and do things that you don't feel like you're going to do. You want the best results, whatever your goals are. So I think finding people that you trust, who are good at the things that maybe you don't feel, help strengthen those weaknesses within your team. And then that just frees you up to focus on more time on what you're really good at. And a lot of small businesses, CEOs run into that just operationally, where they feel like I have to do everything. I am the business, and you can hit a growth wall because, you know, you need to hire people who are better at you. Like, that's what I look for. I want somebody who's better at video editing, not just somebody who can do it, you know, almost as good as me. I want to be able to hand that off so I can focus more on these other things or what's the mantra, like working on the business and not in the business.
Yeah, I think it's James' tagline, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
Chime in, James.
that comes, I appreciate all the plugs, but that comes from years of doing strategy. I've implemented Traction. Like I get that. And you know, one of the tools that Traction has is called the delegate and elevate, right? And so you get down all the stuff that you like and love and that you're good at and you're not good at, but you love to, you know, like the 4 quadrants of getting the stuff off your plate and concentrating on what you're good at, which if you started the business, you're doing it and then you've built it and you've got people that are probably better at than you are now, and you can concentrate on strategy and you can concentrate on product development, you can concentrate on whatever else there might be, customer service, and let some of the other experts and partners that are in it with you handle the stuff that you're not great at. And it's okay.
I want you, my peers, to chime in. So I really think that a couple things. One of your questions, Taylor, was, you know, what about a local agency? Well, in my opinion, all social is local to be effective. But the reality is the social platforms are monetized. Unless you pay, you don't play. And so all the creative organic in the world isn't going to move your brand. And someone on staff can do organic, but you really need a team of professionals with their finger on the pulse of social today and what's Google's latest algorithm in search and all those things. And that's your specialty, you guys, but we have a team that does that too. And I meant what I said, just because someone's young on staff and they're probably on social, they're allowed to do it. It may or may not move your brand at all. And you're just distracting a person from the other job you're happening to do. You really need people that can say to you, here's what's going to happen with no cookies anymore, and here's where we need to move, and here's how much we need to pay for this. And then hold them accountable to metrics that show you they're growing their brand with that channel. But if this is not time to say, I don't have any money to bring a professional to the table, I think it's worth every penny in value pricing, especially if they can turn around and tell you how they're working on behalf of you to leverage these channels to grow your brand.
It's like, there's a process I used to go through, and I still use this for any project. It's like, okay, can we do this? You know, how will we do this? Should we do this? And I think with like what Alliance Group does for myself and other companies, where, yeah, could I try and like just stress my way through payroll and all these things that I have no idea. I mean, I know how they work. I don't know how to actually do them. Same thing with SEO strategy. Like, I know how it works. That doesn't mean I'm the best expert to put together an SEO strategy. And I think just it's okay to, and I think you'll find more growth and success with anything you do if you just maximize what you're really good at and you're best at, and then partner with the experts and trust in those people that are better at the things that that you need as well. And I think, just it's a relief knowing, yeah, I don't have to worry about these things that I don't know how many businesses go out of business because they spend too much time on these things.
Yeah.
They really don't have to be.
No.
Well, there's risk in that. I don't mean to bugger at the time from Joan here, James, but in HR, could I do that? Yeah. Because things are changing every day. Could I be sued? Probably, if I tried to do it. That's why I crochet every minute. That's to help me. But that in social, you can step in it very quickly.
Yeah.
If you don't respond quickly enough to a social issue, if you respond inappropriately, you can really misstep big time. And I love your analogy for that reason. So why take that risk and have to, spend, once you're done working on the rest of your business at 10 o'clock or in social media, why don't you just let somebody else, be your partner in that?
What about the old adage of any good, what is it? Any good news? All press is good press. Thank you. What about that? How do you spin a story that might not be in someone's favor, one of your clients' favor? How do you spin that? How do you approach a bad press, if you will?
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't sit on that.
And I think your response, whatever it is, has to be genuine.
True.
I think there are people are like, how does it not stick to them? I mean, how many people have had the term?
Chipotle, how about
Yeah.
Chipotle? How much E.
Yeah.
coli do they have to have before they don't die?
Or it's like Teflon, whoever. I mean, that's a nickname people, Teflon, who, you know, Teflon Bob, Teflon Don. It's like, nothing sticks to them. And it's like, well, what are they, you know, there are people that things do stick to, and that's a lot of it. I'm not maybe every single circumstance, but it's because they let it stick. They didn't move quickly or respond quickly enough, and they didn't do it in an authentic, genuine way. If your apology for a misstep is insincere and doesn't come across as an apology, then it's not really going to have, it's just going to could make it worse.
Yeah, humanize everything, right? Like, we're all humans. Everybody makes mistakes. We have to own up to things. And if what Wendy said is that you've got to respond quickly, right? You can't let stuff linger out there. And the same thing goes into any type of even like reviews and stuff, right? Like Facebook reviews, Google reviews. You should respond to the good and the bad. You should respond to everything that you can in those worlds. Sometimes though, some of the stuff that maybe Matt was going towards there is that some stuff doesn't deserve our time. Sometimes it just we shouldn't even respect it enough to respond to it, and just let it go. What happens when you don't respond to bullies? They go away. So just know the audience, know who you are, and if it's a legitimate thing, respond to it, fess up, humanize, and move on.
So Shay had a session earlier today. It was called Surviving the Turnover Tsunami, which was all about, right, how do you attract employees? How do you retain employees? And with rising unemployment, how does that work? But from a marketing standpoint or a brand standpoint, how does that impact an employee's decision to stay?
Yeah,
to
we talked a
leave?
lot about employment branding and developing that, like what's your employer value proposition, making sure that's genuine and really articulating what it is. And then also your reputation out there. So now there's Glassdoor, sites like that where people can go out and put an anonymous review about their employer. And I'm not so sure that some small business owners are, number one, aware of that. Number two, that they're checking it or dialed into what's being said out there. So is there anything, I guess, sorry, I totally took over your question.
It's totally okay.
But that
I
was something I wanted to ask. I have
you.
another one I want to ask too, but is that something you guys help with too on employer branding perspective? And is there anything employers can do like to attract employees that you guys are aware of, just to help add on to that concept?
Yes, absolutely. So this is that marketing umbrella question. It does, your marketing, your brand does impact retention, which we all need, and recruitment. It's tough these days because there's a lot of choice. And so here's the thing, millennials, 82%, trust a company more when they're authentic and they stand for something. And people want to buy into something, not just buy something. And that goes for employees. I'm going to be more likely to want to come work for you, with you, if you stand for something I believe in, because I want that in my life. I don't want to just go make $14 an hour and go home.
Yeah.
And because I can today, companies should stand for something and really be clear about it. It will help attract. And they like, excuse me,
James,
really,
can
I feel like I can
yeah,
jump it in
but they
second.
really like
James.
companies that contribute to causes. So if you do, you got to put a stake in the ground and let people know. And match giving, or Share Omaha was a big opportunity last Giving Tuesday. So that's what we know, and that's what we push and promote among our clients. In fact, ads, spots on television for Beardmore, Chevrolet, and Subaru right now are for how they give to the community. They're not about leasing a car for X dollars a month. It's a completely different way to look at brands, and it has impact on employees.
And that's been a big change, right? Because it used to be, hey, come, it's free, it's $2.99 a month, come get it around the holidays.
But
and now
I love
it's
that jingle.
completely,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's also where I
Yeah.
think having your voice out there, podcast obviously is a big way that you can build that culture, but also companies know who you are, who they're doing business with, both just from a visual perspective, but they get to know you a little bit more. It's more intimate, right? So from a podcasting perspective, and kind of plugging that there, it's a huge piece for companies to use that for internal company branding. But then telling the story, right? Like we're doing a lot right now in orientation type stuff, doing the company history, telling where it started. You know, the guy that's running the lawn and landscape company used to push a mower. He didn't just sit behind a desk the whole time. He knows what's going on. And so the employees knowing the history of the company, what people have done, who they are, who they support, like goes into the same mantra of finding your target audience. It's finding your targeted people as well, right? And so it's the right people that work for the company, are going to, those that align with you, but also those that maybe can help share a different perspective. So we've talked about those that are aligned, but you know, I've got people on my team that are completely different than me from a social political perspective, and we need that in order to provide the best for our clients. Same thing on you've got to have that healthy balance, but people have to know that you're real, that you stand for what matters.
I can tell you.
Wendy had mentioned about, you know, the millennial perspective, and millennial and Z, that they are willing to work, they're willing to do a lot of things. They just want to know that it matters. They want to work for a company that actually understands that, and they're not just the whole aspect of why you're in business can never be to make money. It's got to be to do something else.
And I don't know the exact, like just the exact percentage number, but I know it's a majority by far. People do not work for a place simply for what they get paid. It's not just about the salary, it's about the other things. And in radio as an industry, I thought it was just maybe the companies that I work for, but just across the industry, and this is, I think, emblematic of how it works from a top-down mentality. So if you're a small business and you're growing your company, you get your first, second, third, fourth employee, it starts with you and that foundation, because it really is top-down, big or small, and how the culture that you create at your company. And so there in radio is still to this day and I would have so many people I know, like when you mentioned Big Omaha, I would talk to people and they had these great jobs, like, well, we did this and we have these team building exercises and we do this and this. And it's like, what? You have what? Like, I'm just told, sit down, work, you love your job, therefore we're going to take advantage of you, pay you nothing for it. Yeah. And don't ask any questions, don't discuss how much you make with anybody else, because that's going to, you know, cause an up. And it's like, and when I hired my first full-time employee with Two Brothers Creative, it was a person that was making minimum wage, doing with responsibilities where there's literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line based off of their performance. You're paying them minimum wage, you're treating them like a lot of micromanagement to degrees that are just kind of, it's like a 1998 management strategy, you know, it's like it's effective today. And so I think how you treat people, and I'm very aware of that because I've been on the other end of being taken advantage of for a long time, because you're passionate about it, you love what you do, and you're kind of blinded to the reality of your work and your skills or talents are kind of being taken advantage of. So like now I want to turn that around, and I'm going to give you more than just a salary. I mean, they did a study once where it was like pizza party. Like if you buy people pizza, your employees pizza, yeah, they'll work harder and appreciate that more than if you gave them like a $50 bonus or something. I mean, it's the little things that go a long way in how you treat your employees. And I think that's a good inside out method to follow with, like you said, with marketing, where it's like inside the company, we want you to love the company. Outside the company with our customers, we want you to love the company. So it really starts, you know, with you, the CEO, the owner, the creator. What type of what type of culture do you want to create in and out?
Yeah, and I like what you said, about people looking for a purpose or why are you doing this? There's a really good book called, Why by Simon Sinek that maybe you've heard of, but he says like people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it also ties into a little bit of the marketing strategy. And he uses like Apple as an example, and that they're like, we're different. And I don't remember the exact strategy of it, but he was saying how it makes them more adaptable. That's how they could transition from computers to an iPad to, iPods and all those different things, is because people were bought into that brand and why they did it. So, okay, so I have another question. Can I have another question? Do you have more questions?
You can have
I'm so
all the
sorry.
questions. No, we've got about 5 minutes,
Just take it
so.
over your meeting.
No, this is a conversation. This is a round table.
You guys brought up a good point earlier about not working on your business and not in your business. So actually my degree is in business, but I also specialize in management entrepreneurship before I got more focused in HR. So I love the entrepreneurship, and we read this book called The E-Myth in school back in the day. And it's a great book, but it talks about people who are really, like you're saying, experts craft in their field. Like they're doing it, or they're not pushing the lawnmower anymore. You guys mentioned it. A lot of small business owners maybe start out doing something that they're really great at, and then their business expands. How did you transition to delegating to other people? Like, was that a difficult transition? And then I forgot the other part of the question, so we'll just go with that.
Absolutely.
Like trusting other people and delegating and all that, like, and you mentioned like the first employee, so how did that go?
This is a really boring answer, but it's probably the best answer I can give, is have your processes and your procedures down. There's plenty of websites, software programs, you can actually do this, but you can't, what do they call, like the future CEOs are called like a unicorn. And these are the people that like, you hire them and they just know how to do everything. And they can do anything and everything you ask, and they can excel at it. And we think, oh, every employee should be that. But in reality, those are future CEOs of companies. They aren't the norm, which means you have to train, you have to provide the resources and the patience and the tools. And by that, I mean, like, here is our step-by-step process for example, here's how we set up a video shoot. Here's all the equipment you're going to need. Here's where we're going to place it. Here's how we're going to set our things like our white balance and aperture. And here's how we meter our sound. And here's the process, step-by-step we go through. So that I know, quality is my number one core value for my company. So I want to make sure that it's the same quality if it's me doing it or if I delegate it to somebody else. But in order to do that, I can't just expect, and that was probably my biggest misstep, is I expected, oh, well, this person, they're just like me, so they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
No, and you can't put that on somebody else. It's your job, I think, as the leader, the owner, operator, to say, here's, like, you've done it yourself, so write down all the steps you go through as you do it, and then provide that as a resource, a tool for your first employee. And then they can take it once they've got it mastered, and they can train other employees. And you can start to hand these tasks off, as you do them, learn them, and create the procedures and processes internally.
Yeah, and then, I'm sorry, I remembered part 2 of my question now. So because you guys are, marketing experts, how do you find the time then to carve out your strategic planning process and do your marketing planning when you're doing this every day? Like, you know what I'm saying?
How's the marketing company market themselves?
So
2-part question,
Yeah.
sorry.
so we treat ourselves as our own client, as an answer to that. So one person on our team has KE as a client on their desk. And so otherwise, yeah, it's the cobbler's shoes always need mended, the painter's house always needs painted, the mechanic's car is broken down. And we get into that same world too, and I'm sure that you two as well. But how we came across that about 6 years ago was we just need to be our own client. And so, we consider a certain person to be able to handle so many brands and so many accounts, but we take one of those off of somebody, and we rotate it every now and then, but that we are our own client, and we set aside that time we have our own quarterly strategy sessions. We have our own annual strategy sessions. 3 weeks ago, I flew everybody into Omaha and we all met and did a full day session talking about 2022. And then one Tuesday every single month, we all get together on a Zoom call and talk about what's going to happen over the next month. And we do that all where we just treat ourselves as our own client. So that's how we found the easiest way to do that. To your first question though, I'd mentioned the 4 quadrants in the delegate to elevate. And those 4 quadrants are love and great, stuff I love to do and I'm great at it, stuff that I like to do and I'm good at it. And then below the line is stuff that I am good at but I don't like to do, and stuff that I'm not good at and I don't like to do. And so everything below the line, that's stuff that I don't like to do, are the things that first should come off your plate. And you should hire people to take those things first. Then work your way up to where you're working on the stuff that you love to do and you're great at it. And it may be stuff that you do in the day-to-day business that you're working in the business to do it. And maybe you're the best person for that, but it should be something that you absolutely love to do and you're the best at it. If it's anything below that, you should find somebody that can do that better than you.
That's a great, I won't jump in it again, but I can attest to that just in the last year going through that. You find this success and you're like, why am I still like not enjoying parts of this? And then I realized, well, that's because I've been editing videos for 20 years now, and you can get burned out on it after 20 years. So it's like, yeah, some of these projects require your specific skill sets that maybe employees don't have or things you're good at. But I found I did that and I was forced to do that, where it's like, what do I really love? I love the coaching and the creative process and those things, and that's what I excel at. Some of the more mundane things that, or not also mundane, because it takes away from them, but just other things that, like you said, that I don't enjoy the most. There are people that can help you with those things, and I think you'll see, you'll reach higher growth levels doing it the way James said there, I think, than trying to force yourself to do it.
Yeah, and that's hard for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well, and also if you're starting out new and you're like a solopreneur and you're trying to be scrappy, you're trying to, like you guys said, save money, but at some point you should just trust the experts and realize you're not an expert in everything, and you've gotta, like, even in our the turnover summit, we talked about like outsourcing and using contractors and stuff like that, because like you said, maybe there's somebody on your team that can do it, but are there efforts spent better elsewhere? Or would it help alleviate a staffing situation? Like maybe you can't find these people and you've always thought, I need this person working here in my business, but do you, can you find other people? So
I think that's a growing mindset, Shay. Must that be an FTE?
yeah,
Really? Because must it be a fully loaded employee, or can it really be a team that could do what you think one person can do? I think it's worth think different, like that. It's worth exploring different ways of doing business. Disruption has hit big time in 2020. So
definitely
look at all the corners of the room.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
I think there's a lot of fear. This is new. It's terrifying, but I mean,
exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, you have 10 seconds, you have a mantra, word of advice for those folks that are listening as we finish off the summit today?
Everything has changed, and so you have to embrace that. But the one thing in marketing that hasn't changed and never will, in my opinion, is content is king. So figure out your message and stick to it.
Yep.
I like it.
I would say don't wait for something to be perfect to start executing on it. If you've got a plan, you've got it written down, and you start executing on it, then you're going to be much better off than most everybody else anyway.
My coach, he's still my coach today. He was actually one of my first managers who hired me, and I still use him as a coach for podcasts that I host and stuff. And he kind of ingrained this line into me that people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And so I think keeping in mind that despite all the gear and fancy equipment and the new apps and technology, it's still about the person that's using that you can take an iPhone and you can make an extremely cinematic movie that passes, and then you're just using your phone, so it's really more about the person behind it and who's running it. And that's important to keep in mind that it's about the people.
Absolutely. And it's your brand, right, that you're
Yeah.
creating every day. Right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Are there
Well,
questions
perfect.
from the-
We don't have any questions from the chat,
Okay.
probably because we took up all the time. But thank you to Wendy, Matt, and James for participating in
Absolutely.
the roundtable today.
Thank you
We
for
really
asking.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. If there's anything that we can ever do, please let us know.
Available to anybody listening if you want to follow up. I'm sure
Yeah,
I'll throw
absolutely. Yeah, please
Yeah.
feel free to reach out to us or reach out to each one of them directly. So, I will leave it at that. And then I think we're just wrapping up, right, Shay?
Yep,
Awesome. Perfect. Here is how you can contact us, and we can get you in touch with our panelists today or any of our other speakers throughout the course of this wonderful Alliance Summit. But here's our contact information, and our next summit will be end of April, early May.
yeah, about 6 months from now.
Yeah. So we haven't set the date yet, but be on the lookout for that calendar invite coming out shortly. So
Yep.
thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you again next year. I guess